Hey guys, so once again, sharing some thoughts I had while in the gym. Listening again to I don't think this was a podcast, actually, this is a streaming video. And the book Battlefield Earth came up. And I read Battlefield Earth probably close to 30 years ago. It's much better than the movie, actually. But the interesting thing about the book compared to the movie is that the movie only covers, well, the movie covers less than half of the book, because spoilers for the movie and the book. What the movie and book are about initially is these aliens at some point in the future, I think it was the future, show up on Earth, basically kill all the humans, or almost all the humans, or a lot of humans. And then the remaining humans, they occupy Earth and use the human population for slave labor and extract the resources from Earth. And the humans that are fighting back against the aliens are basically the survivors. And they have like this kind of, their stories and their myths about the past where humans were dominating the planet. But these are just stories, right? So that's shown in the movie, and where the humans managed to defeat the aliens called the Cyclos. The names in this book, there's certain elements of the book that are pretty silly, actually. It's written by L. Ron Hubbard, the same guy who founded the Church of Scientology, which I'm going to say nothing about because they scare the hell out of me. I'm not going to criticize them at all. They're fine, whatever, right? But there are definitely some silly elements of it, like the name of the group is Cyclos. And there's some kind of Scientology references in the story that if you're familiar with the belief system, you'll see. But besides that, it's actually a pretty interesting story. But what happens where the movie ends with them defeating the Cyclos are these other aliens show up. Now, remember, I read the book 30 years ago, and basically they say, yeah, the Cyclos had a debt, and now you've got to pay it. So more than half of the book actually gets into this interstellar, basically like property law, which sounds like it would be boring as all get out, but it's actually pretty interesting. And of course, you're rooting for the humans, not just because, okay, you're a human and you relate to those characters, but it's just like, yeah, they were enslaved. They won. They defeated this alien race despite the overwhelming odds against them, and they were successful. First, they used their strategy and their battle acumen, and then later on, they used their intelligence, right? So you're rooting for them. That's the most normal thing. They're clearly the good guys. So let's talk about Haiti, okay? So Haiti got its independence in 1804 after fighting, I think, over a decades-long war against France, which was possibly the strongest empire at the time. And Haiti did not want to France did not want to let Haiti go, because I think at the time Haiti was maybe the most valuable, or one of the most valuable colonies, because of its production of sugarcane, which was used to produce a number of things, including rum, part of the triangle trade and the transatlantic slave trade, right? So after they defeated the French were like, okay, well, if you want to exist, you're going to have to trade with the rest of the world, and we will keep you from doing that unless you pay us back for what you owe us. So think about this, right? So you have these people who are descendants of people who are kidnapped from Africa. They have these stories and this connection to this land across the ocean that they've heard about. Elements of it are in their language and whatever, but so generations being abused, tortured, mutilated, exploited, even more so, as bad as it was in the U.S., even more so in the Caribbean, because the very nature of the plantations. Then when they finally get their freedom, they still owe, right? In America, we like to say how we fought for our freedom. No, the Haitians fought for their freedom. We fought so we didn't have to pay taxes without having a representative. Well, we didn't fight anything. My ancestors were enslaved. Well, there were blacks that fought in the revolution, but yes, more than 90% of blacks were enslaved. We didn't get our freedom until decades later. So that whole narrative is kind of bullshit on that part. So anyway, after they get their freedom, they owe money, and they keep paying up until, I think, around 1946, 47, something like that. And they end up paying somewhere between, in today's money, equivalent of somewhere between 22 and $30 billion. Now, to kind of give you a context of that, The Louisiana Purchase, which the U.S. made in 1803, a year before Haiti got its freedom, was about $15 million in modern money. And the funny thing is, the two are actually connected, the Louisiana Purchase and the Haitian Revolution, because basically the French were fighting a war in Europe and they were fighting the Haitians, and their resources were being spread thin. So I think it was may have been Napoleon at the time sold the Louisiana territory to the U.S. to help pay for those wars. So you could kind of say the Haitians maybe brought down the price of the Louisiana Purchase for the U.S., right? So it wasn't just after that when they finished paying the French, maybe by some estimates up to $30 billion, that everything was fine. But just think about that, though, right? The president today was alive. Well, he was also alive with the invention of the horseless carriage, sarcasm. But he was alive when former slaves were still paying for their freedom, right? Like, that's not a long time ago. So up until the 1940s, late 1940s, these people were still paying for their freedom in the backyard of a country which claims to value freedom above anything else. But then after that, well, it wasn't the end, because then the U.S. starts intervening in the affairs of Haiti. They send Marines there periodically, occupying it. They basically decide what leaders will be in charge in Haiti, and not really to the best interests of the Haitians. This is a story throughout Latin America. So the entire history of Haiti is basically outside forces manipulating, controlling, deciding the path that this country will go. Now, this narrative isn't going to really be put out in media much, because it doesn't get questioned. People will look at Haiti and they'll just say, well, look at those people there, and is it a big surprise that the country's like that? It's kind of the same thing where people drive through neighborhoods in the U.S., largely often minority neighborhoods, and they'll say, well, look at the neighborhoods like this. Of course the neighborhoods are like that. Look at the people who live here. And all too often the people who live in those neighborhoods have the same attitude. Now, I'm not saying that Haiti would have ever been some type of paradise or anything. In fact, the father of Haitian Independence, and I'm going to butcher his name, Louverture, I think it was Touissant Louverture. I probably really messed that up. But anyway, he was actually a slave owner. And then there were some real weird racial dynamics that occurred after the Haitians won their independence. But just like these poor minority neighborhoods in the U.S., just like let's just say the Native American reservations, where you have some of the worst drug rates, some of the worst rates of poverty. What do these places look like when you don't have outside forces that aren't really working in their own best interests influencing them? Because I can tell you this, when you look at the richest countries in the world, when you look at the richest territories in the world, when you look at the richest neighborhoods in wealthy countries, almost 99 times out of 100, there was the pulling of resources from other areas, from other regions, and the exploitation of other people. And if you're sitting there saying in the U.S., you're talking about, what do you talk about neighborhoods? Well, I'll tell you this. If you live in the U.S. and you live in a really nice neighborhood, see what was done to make sure certain people couldn't move in that neighborhood. See how the government may have funded or gave loans at low interest rates to your grandparents or great-grandparents at the expense of other people who couldn't get those loans but paid for the taxes. If you have ancestors who came over here and settled land, just think about how military forces cleared the land of its indigenous population and then made laws so that they could sit there and settle the land, but denied that right to other people and denied the indigenous people the right to come back to their land. So we don't live in a bubble. That word comes up again. And we don't live in a world without history. We didn't just wake up without a past and this is just the way things are.